Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Basketball Projects. PH, your Filipino brand of fantasy basketball, ang numero unong basketball pantasya ng bayan. And of course, we have a very special episode for today. So, earlier, we've dropped a couple of episodes. It's called 10 Reasons Why the Dallas Mavericks Can Beat the Boston Celtics, and also 10 Reasons Why the Boston Celtics Can Beat the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals. So, after doing a couple of Tagalog episodes, why not jump in to good friend, NBA Fantasy Bible, D-Mac in the house. What's up, brother?
Roy, long time no speak, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, how was your past weeks or month? We haven't seen you for quite some time.
Yeah, it's actually been pleasant. It's been really good. As we're talking about offline as well, we've had some nice family holidays, nice vacation, gone overseas, gone to Southeast Asia, which has been really, really good. But yeah, keen to get back into it. Not quite fantasy time, but NBA playoffs and the finals. How exciting!
Yeah, it's a different perspective in terms of following NBA, right? Because we're used to really uh kind of like think of it as if like you're looking at in a different lens, wherein we don't kind of like in other considerations or in other aspects of the game, as long as that specific player gives us stats. Now it's a different ball game. Everything matters, even the rough matters, right?
Absolutely.
And it's going to be bunkers for tomorrow's ball game. It was around what 10 days of no NBA action, so I'm pretty sure everyone is super excited. And we won't take much of your time. Supposedly this is a live show for me and DMAC, but unfortunately, I guess FB doesn't want us to, showcase and ask questions. They thought that we're streaming live NBA ahead of the game. How do you do that, FB? Why are you so strict? But nonetheless, this is a recording, guys, and we are going to talk about our predictions for the NBA Finals, and it's going to be live in a couple of hours. Let me just ask DMAC here. DMAC, I guess let's just, punch it the hard way. Who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals?
Yeah, straight to the point. I'm going Boston in 6. I think it'll be a close matchup, but I still think they've just got so much talent on that roster. Yes, Dallas have the best player in Luka, but I think just the amount of different options and defensive schemes that Joe Mazzulla has and will be able to present to Luka and Kyrie, I think they'll just have too much in the tank. They've cruised through, and some will say they're just not battle hardened, but I think that's probably a good thing. The playoffs are a long period of time, and I think having these probably easier matchups along the way, and they've been lucky to get through with a few guys being injured along the way as well on the opposition teams. I think that'll hold them in good stead.
There you go. So in comparison to other shows, uh, we are going to just, put it all in off the bat. We're gonna say which teams we are going to choose to win the NBA finals. Me, of course, well, it doesn't just mean that I want this to make more fun and choosing the other side. But initially I really thought that when I want to follow if I want to follow my logic and what I see in the records historically, which I'm gonna touch on a little bit later. I would have gone Boston Celtics. I mean, that team is built different. I also agree on the point of DMAC there. Like what I mentioned in one of our earlier episodes, in why Boston can actually beat the Dallas Mavericks. So I mentioned there, guys, that why not embrace both? We were lucky, but they were also good. It's not like you choose one of it. It's just so happened that it was an easier path, but it doesn't mean they aren't good. So I still think they're a better team. So I would have gone that way, but I guess I've seen enough of what Dallas did in just a couple of months. So I think this isn't to be a cakewalk for the Boston Celtics. The good thing about the regular season game that they had, it was a different Dallas Mavericks. and I actually checked several teams which I'm gonna discuss earlier, and I noticed a trend on the 18 losses that the Boston Celtics had in the regular season. I know it's a different ball game. Playoff setup is super different in the regular season, but it's also somewhat an indicator on what should we expect from this bout. So I'm gonna go with the Dallas Mavericks in 7, just because mainly I think it's gonna be closer than expected. Not necessarily per game close. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a game that, it's gonna be raining threes and Dallas might not do anything about it. But there's also gonna be a game where Luka is gonna take over. But then again, a couple of games, say 3 or 4 games, it's gonna be tight, and I'm gonna hedge on the better, closer players, which is Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So since D-Mac here is actually backing the Boston Celtics, one big question, D-Mac, for you is, how do the Boston Celtics handle possibly the best offensive backcourt in the league right now, which is Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving?
I think they've got a lot of defensive nous, and like I said, they'll throw different defensive schemes at them. They won't just stick to the same defender each and every play on Luka. Obviously, Luka is the number one. Boston thrive on that 3-point game. They'll live and die by the sword. So they just want to put up more 3-pointers than the opposition. So they're going to dare Luka, Kyrie, and co to just get into the key and play that game. And Luka's going to have to light it up from outside, and they're going to stick on him like glue. They can throw Derek White. They can throw Drew Holiday. And this is why Boston brought in Drew Holiday. They've also brought in Porzingis. He's going to be underdone coming into the game 1. I believe he's going to play. Pretty sure he will play. In what capacity, I'm not sure. That could disrupt things, but I think they're such a cohesive unit anyway that he will slide in quite nicely. So they've just got so many different options on the defensive end, plus their offensive nous as well. Number 1 ranked offensive team in terms of offensive rating. Number 3 ranked defensive rating team as well. What a combination. I just think they've just got too much in the tank for Dallas.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. But something that I noticed, at least in the past 2 games that they matched up, as much as they all of the variety of defensive matchups for Luka, it didn't matter. Luka got his way, dropped 30 points across 2 of that game. But thing is, it's a different thing for Kyrie. So I think maybe because Kyrie is a little bit older and a little bit smaller, he's gonna find ways to contribute, similar to what we on how he handled OKC series, when he struggled, but he showed his veteran presence by playing the defense more, and also, time and time again he shoots or takes the ball away from Luka just to, kind of like establish the pace. So I'm expecting that to happen, but as given that Kyrie is that good, and also Jason Kidd is a point guard and is also that good, I was thinking they've learned something from the OKC series that they can actually apply against the Boston Celtics. And Dallas Mavericks mainly plays and navigates very well in screens. So I am expecting a lot of that. And I haven't really seen the Boston Celtics navigate as good as the Dallas Mavericks in terms of screens. Thing is, because they are actually good on ball, they have a lot of great defensive players, so they haven't really relied on, switches and all. So it's gonna be tested, and given that this is kind of like the how the Dallas Mavericks play, I'm thinking Luka and Kyrie can actually adapt and adjust on court in real time, the way they actually adjusted in the past series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's different against OKC and the LA Clippers. I've seen how they grew, and also how they kind of like had a chance to rest, especially Luka, who was really banged up in the first 2 rounds. It was a different Luka against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Plus 10 days of rest. So I'm thinking maybe Boston might end up focusing more on Kyrie in terms of stopping one of those 2 instead of Luka, because Luka is gonna get his. What do you think, D-Mac?
Yeah, it's an interesting take that they'd focus on Kyrie. I think there's just been so much media around Luka, and it's been that way since day dot, since his rookie year as well. I just don't think they're going to let him off the leash. They're going to, as I said, they're just going to throw left, right, and center different defensive schemes, different guys, different looks as well. Perhaps they even play Jason Tatum on him as well, just for that extra length and cover. But then you look at 1 through 5 on that Boston starting five. They're just such an elite starting five. Then you got Tito, Al Horford coming off the bench. I would expect that maybe not game one, but game two onwards, he'll come off the bench and play his normal role. It's just such a solid 1 through 6. Whereas Dallas, of course, you got the superstars in Kyrie and Luka, but outside of that, that can be very up and down. PJ Washington has been awesome. Daniel Gafford has been really good. Great pickup post trade deadline as well. Derek Lively could be an X factor, but I think they're going to allow that. I think that's what Boston want. They want them to attack them on the inside and attack with their twos and inside presence as well. But then they're just going to shoot from the three. I think Boston would enjoy that game as well. So Lukic just has to be at his best 100% for all. Let's go at least the first 4 or 5 games as well, if it even gets to that point. If he's off, if he's slightly off and he doesn't play his best, I don't think Dallas have a chance. But again, having said that, Luka is such a champion. He could just be on and he could be that dominant. I just don't see it happening game in, game out for the entire series.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned Jason Tatum covering Luka. I think Jason Tatum is the best player to guard Luka just because of his size, his athleticism. It's a little bit kind of like far from not that far from Jalen Brown. Maybe just because of length. I like Jason Tatum more, but I don't think Boston would intend to use their best offensive weapon and defend the best player in the series. So I'm looking at Jalen Brown guarding him more, and then uh, Derek White is gonna get his chance. Drew Holiday is gonna get his chance. But speaking of Jason Tatum, in with respect to his ability to help out as well, aside from scoring, I think he's gonna play a little bit of the five, which he did against the Indiana Pacers, just because of the switch that Luka always initiates. Because I'm thinking it's going to be favorable for the Boston Celtics if Luka goes uh, downhill, and then if there's gonna be a switch, say for example, initially Jalen Brown guards him, and then after the switch, Jason Tatum is gonna guard him. So it's not gonna be someone like Rudy Gobert or Al Horford that you can just beat either driving to the basket or doing that side step or step back. It's gonna be harder against Jason Tatum. So let's see how long will that setup is gonna play out. But with that said, I'm also gonna think Dallas can counter that with PJ Washington. So you mentioned PJ Washington was actually, there were times that he was bunkers, especially from the corner. He actually shot around 40% in the corner and around, I think 24 to 29% on top of the key in the past playoffs, which for me is something that I wanted to highlight because the Boston Celtics with Porzingis has an advantage because Porzingis is more mobile and has that rim protection against the front court of the Dallas Mavericks. Thing is, Luka is gonna use screens. So it's either he uses Derek Jones Jr., their center, either Dan Gafford, most likely. I think in this series, I'm expecting Derek Lively to get more minutes than Dan Gafford or PJ Washington. And out of that three, I think the Boston Celtics might end up giving Derek Jones Jr. or PJ Washington better looks than Luka taking the shot or than Luka lobbing it to the post. So the two players, PJ and Derek Jones Jr., needs to be prepared in shooting the basket. Derek Jones Jr. need to shot more. He actually has more than 50% of a good. He was good shooting the basketball almost more than 50% during the playoffs. Thing is, he hasn't really shot a lot. So that's one thing he should improve on. PJ, on the other hand, he only shot around 25% on the top of the key. So it's going to be hard for him to, to punish the Boston Celtics. So I'm thinking he needs to really improve that. And if he can actually punish the Boston Celtics, then it could be a factor wherein, oh, hey, we can't really let PJ Washington left open. I doubt when there's gonna be a pick and roll he rolls because there's a Porzingis that is gonna rotate to him. So he isn't really good in driving to the basket. He doesn't dribble that well as for PJ Washington. So it's gonna be either a mid-range shot or he's gonna step back and go outside. So very challenging series for PJ Washington.
And I think to your point as well, someone who else could be a bit of a wild card for the Dallas Mavericks is Maxi Kleber. Come back recently from injury, but he could play that big man role. Obviously, he's not the same type of player as Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford, but he can shoot the three ball. So he can almost be a similar player to PJ Washington if PJ Washington goes cold as well. So I think he could be a bit of a wild card. We haven't seen much of him recently, but I think he works well with Luca. Just talking about our European guys as well. So Max Kleber, just keep an eye out for him as well. Just going back to our original point, I think Boston in 6. But do I want Boston to win? Absolutely not. I want Dallas to win. Like, I've been to Dallas. I have an affinity for the city. I would love to see them win, and it would be exciting in 7. I just still feel it's going to be Boston in 6, unfortunately.
So another question of mine is, uh, how that stops Porzingis? How does the dynamics change now he's back? Of course, Tito Angel is gonna come off the bench. Me personally, I think Kristaps Porzingis is their secret second best player. No offense to Jalen Brown. I just think a healthy unicorn, I think, really is a better player than Jalen Brown in terms of the dynamics of their play. So who's that secret second best player? But like what you mentioned earlier, the question here is what percentage of that unicorn will we see tomorrow, especially for game 1? As you can see, we have Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, and even Derek White having a good amount of time playing together in the playoffs. Drew Holiday actually is a champion, so it was a big acquisition for them. And then Tito Alice, as old as my wine here, I actually drink every time I want to distress. So now we're left with Kristaps Porzingis, who were shelved for more than a month, didn't play. Now the pressure is on him to really step up because he could be the difference maker in this ball game. So what do you think would his response be specifically for game 1?
I think he's the absolute X factor. I think he's going to be a great matchup for Boston. I think Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford are going to struggle with him. He is so mobile, as you mentioned. I think he is going to be the guy. And with his unicorn play, and we've seen it in terms of fantasy, but in just real life, this is why they acquired him. They no longer have Robert Williams. It just didn't work out with him clogging that paint as well. You look at his defensive ability, but also he can just go off offensively, and that's something that they haven't had previously. And I think perhaps if they were really struggling in previous series in the playoffs, perhaps he would have come up. But I think they've been saving him for this very moment. He's the difference maker. I think he's the true X factor. He may not play a huge role in game 1 because he is just reintegrating himself into that squad. But I think he's going to be a key throughout the entire series as well. So watch out for him. Sneaky pick for playoff MVP or finals MVP.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And I was also thinking, Kristaps Porzingis, if you look at the regular season, is one of the best post-up players in the league. We haven't seen that against the Miami Heat because he was injured. So the last time I checked, there was a stretch wherein he almost scored around 8 points from the post, almost every game. So that it means that he's gonna hunt someone from the Dallas Mavericks. So I think that's why Derek Lively is very important, as well as PJ Washington, because that's their initial depth to guard Kristaps Porzingis. You mentioned Maxi Kleber, totally agree on that. People say that we haven't really played a lot in the playoffs, but I mean, in terms of tenure, he's been in the Dallas Mavericks for quite some time. Like you mentioned, if you play fantasy basketball, he's one of the good pick up player whenever someone sits, especially the season when they had Porzingis. So the moment Porzingis was out, it's going to be Maxi Kleber. It's going to give you threes. It's going to give you blocks. But again, I just think that this series is going to be too tight to the point that there's also a possibility that, if the Dallas Mavericks really played their pace and their game well, that he doesn't necessarily have to play. And then that's where in the bench for me is a little bit an advantage for the Dallas Mavericks, because for the Boston Celtics, Peyton Pritchard, well, that's Tito Al, that's for sure. But you have Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard. No offense about picture. There's like the mini TJ McConnell. I love it. Thing is, he only offers shooting that goes as well with Sam Hauser. In comparison with the bench of the Dallas Mavericks, of course, you have Derek Lively, who usually plays off the bench. Then you have Josh Green, wherein in the second game in the regular season where Boston and Dallas Mavericks faced, he actually guarded Jason Tatum for almost the whole game. And then you have Jaden Hardy, who actually is kind of like a firecracker off the bench, which I just think they are more playable in instances where it's the last couple of minutes on after the first quarter, or maybe the first couple of minutes after at the start of the second quarter or the start of the third quarter. So I'm seeing the quality opportunity for those who has been really playing well. If you've checked during the Minnesota Timberwolves, there was even an instant where in Jaden Hardy and even Josh Green had an island play against Rudy Gobert and Carl Anthony Towns, and they killed it. I mean, Kat and Rudy Gobert, they upset it. Them, it wasn't expected. They're too confident. You can see in their body language. So maybe it could be like, a fine line of importance in a game, in a 7-game series, because every time your main man sits, it's a different ball game. When Jason Tatum sits or Jalen Brown or even either of the defensive backcourt sits, Kyrie and Luka will definitely hunt whoever is going to play over. Luka will hunt them, Kyrie will hunt them. Well, in fact, in return, if either of Luka or Kyrie sits, maybe one of them won't sit. Offensively, it's should be a problem because Luka is Luka and Kyrie is Kyrie. There's no matching. There's no big score when it comes to the third best player of the Dallas Mavericks. But in terms of defense, Josh Green can do that. So I just think there could be a slight advantage in terms of bench comparison among those two teams.
I think Dallas do run a little bit deeper. But to my earlier point, I think just Boston's top six, you throw in Hauser, you throw in Peyton Pritchard as well. I think they've got enough. I don't see Pritchard and Hauser playing humongous minutes early days. But as you said, if it goes the distance, if it goes into game 6, game 7, they become a little bit more valuable as well, playing a few more minutes. There could be some fatigue. Perhaps Porzingis does sit a game for a little bit of rest, depending on whether it's a tight game or if it's a blowout as well. Boston will be hoping for some blowouts to afford themselves to rest some of their starting five as well. I see the importance of Jaden Hardy. And I see the importance of Josh Green. I just don't think they're going to be that key factor because you just look at your starters and they're going to play humongous minutes. And I know it's not New York. It's not Thibs that's going to play them every single minute of the game. But I don't think it's going to be far off as well. But yeah, to your point, if things aren't working for Dallas, they're able to switch it up and they do have a little bit more backup depth than probably what Boston do.
Yeah, and because since technically we're on agreement that I think everybody agrees how good the lineup of Boston is, and one of the things that I saw that maybe Dallas has a little bit of an advantage as well is apparently surprising for me. It's their coaching because I was never a fan of Jason Kidd in the past just because of its inconsistencies. I just think he's one of those coaches wherein it's tricky in a sense. There's gonna be stretches when it's good, then there's gonna be stretches when it's bad. And when it's bad, it's really, really bad. So maybe that's the reason why there's a lot of negative association to Jason Kidd. But I just think at least for this series and in this playoffs specifically, Jason Kidd did really well. Um he actually adjusted and adapted since round one up to round three in the Western Conference. Maybe a little bit challenged during this matchup against OKC. Uh, if you check the points, they're almost tied, and the games were decided like via free throws in several games, and definitely rebounds. The rebound was a big factor in that series. So for me, I'm giving that as advantage, especially that he's also a player. He has a different perspective in terms of being when the light is bright. But earlier, Joe Mazzulla just mentioned in his interview that um, the light doesn't change. It's still the same. So he's saying that is not really actually I guess the word afraid is the best word to choose, but he's not concerned rather with what he can offer in this final stint. Thing is, he's a little bit younger in terms of experience over Jason Kidd, and then I've read several articles talking about a lot of organization leaders in several teams, and that's one thing that they see that could actually uh, kind of like a point of weakness for the Boston Celtics, because what if this gets close? They aren't that um they aren't that confident with Joe Mazzulla. Some are kind of like sharing that way. Boston was clutch, especially against the Indiana Pacers. Me personally, I really watched those games. I think it's not more on Joe Mazzulla, not taking away credit for him. It's more of like Greek Carlisle not really playing very well. There's a lot of mishaps for the Indiana Pacers. So I can't really say that he did a great job. But the thing is, it worked. They won. So we can't take away that from Joe Mazzulla. But I just think, again, the key here is if it gets close, I'm really hedging on Jason Kidd over Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, I see your point in terms of the experience, but also I love what Joe Mazzulla's done. Yes, he is inexperienced, but the culture is really strong, and I think there are a lot of what did I read today? A lot of cheesiness that he brought in the postseason, or sorry, in the off season. But I think the guys bought into it, and I think they love what they've done. They've always had the talent, and they've strengthened that talent this season as well. But what he's been doing, and he's probably had some mentorship as well from Brad Stevens, and Ime Udoka started it as well, just with that roster. I think he's strengthened that. So I don't think the inexperience is really going to cost Boston too much. But it's an interesting point that you raised in terms of Jason Kidd. The Dallas Mavericks love what they've done. They've extended his contract, so he must be doing some things right. Obviously, us in Fantasyland, we know of his history in terms of bad player management and just not really doing things right in terms of being a coach. Much better player than he is a coach, but things have turned around, and I think he's been held in higher esteem, particularly with his stuff that he's done with the Mavs.
Yeah. And now we're down to last main points, I guess. I want to touch on Jason Tatum. So there's so much hate against the Boston Celtics, specifically Jalen Brown, especially Jason Tatum. I don't know your take on this. Let's hear it after uh, my point. Wherein I just think it's because of because me personally, I agree on several points. Like he doesn't, we can't really see that swagger or a killer instinct if you compare it to other greats, right? So he was that good in his younger years to the point that people really have a very high standards for him, and I get that. Rightfully so. This should be true to everyone, not only for Jason Tatum. If you think you're the best player, if you have the potential, don't get brokenhearted if people are putting you with high standards, because that's like what Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. So we that should be expected. The thing is, people just can't embrace the fact this is going could be something that I would say sorry to the fans of Jason Tatum or the fans of the Boston Celtics. I just think people can't embrace the fact that he won't be the face of the NBA. He won't be the number one player in the game. I see the potential. I've seen what he's done. Like as of the moment, if you compare him to Jokic and even to Luka Doncic, it's too. I don't think it's that close. I don't think it's that close in terms of what a face of the NBA or what the number one player in the game is. Thing is, it's close in a sense of, hey, who is the top five player in the game? Why? Because Jason Tatum is not just an offensive player, and people usually tends to love scoring, but he does a lot of things. If you check, in the series, he's been their best rebounder. Well, I guess that's because of Kristaps Porzingis not being there, but the fact that he's the main scorer, but also their best rebounder and their best defender in crucial moments, you have to give props to Jason Tatum. So I'm not roasting him for being number one. I'm actually giving props to him. So whoever is watching this, I think you have to, rethink your thoughts about Jason Tatum. You have to give props to Jason Tatum. But me personally, the clincher is the reason I am open to that because I understood that that's his type of play. And I understood that I'm not putting him as that number one face. So I don't have any standards to compare. And it gives ground to what he plays to the point that I appreciate what he does. Because, not being number one has its perks. It means like that you actually what you do is being appreciated. So how about you, Dima?
I think I think Tatum is actually an outstanding player, but he's a victim of the strength of Boston. You just look at that team, and again, I'm banging on about that first six guys. There's just so much strength, and at any one point that he's either struggling or he decides it's going to be a team-centric night tonight, and I'm going to be a facilitator, or I'm going to take a back seat to Jalen Brown or Chris Porzingis or Derek White or even Drew Holiday can go off at any stage. I think he's a victim of just the strength of that Boston team. Whereas you look at a Jokic, you look at Doncic, you look at Ant Edwards. They are him. They are the man on that team, and there's no denial, and there's no denying that as well. Whereas Boston just have that strength in numbers and just that all-round talent that he doesn't have to be that guy every single night. And because of that, and he's meant to be this elite superstar, but he's taking that team-centric approach. So he's sacrificed his own team or his own game for the sake of his team. And I think people just don't understand. I don't understand why people don't quite understand that as well. He could be going to a really poor team or a mediocre team, being that guy and go, look at this guy. He's an absolute superstar. Look at the numbers he's putting up. He just doesn't have to be that guy in Joe Mazzulla's setup.
There you go. So now we're down to the clincher part of this episode. Matt, I'm giving the point to you. I'm giving you a monologue. Last few points why the Boston Celtics will win in six against the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, just to reiterate, pretty much everything that I've been saying, I think there's just going to be so many different looks that they can have. And any one time, if someone is cold, they'll go to the next guy. And they've just got so many guns. And I'll keep it simple. I think they've just got too many options for the Dallas Mavericks. Luka has an off night. Kyrie has a slightly off night. And we've seen more of those over the last couple of seasons. I just don't think they've got enough to be able to contend with the talent that Boston has.
There you go. For me, I'm going with the Dallas Mavericks because of 2 points. Number one is I don't think the Boston Celtics is a bulletproof team. Similar to Dallas, it has its lows. But if you check out the performance of the Boston Celtics, especially against the Indiana Pacers, it's not a sweep, a clean sweep. It's actually closer than you think. If you check out how Nembhard, TJ McConnell actually manipulate the defense of the Boston Celtics, there's runs when they're good defensively, but there's several instances wherein they're kind of like lazy in defense. Maybe it's because they're playing the Indiana Pacers, especially when Tyrese Haliburton was out. But I just don't think it was a very empathic win. Maybe that's the reason why people are kind of like, they didn't receive the Boston Celtics being the Eastern Conference champion that well. So I'm looking at that angle. So it means I think the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Miami Heat had chances to win some against the Boston Celtics, wherein the Dallas Mavericks can learn from that. I looked at the 18 teams wherein the Boston Celtics lost in the regular season. Majority of them are against the top 8 of the Western Conference team. They actually dominated all the Eastern Conference teams. And I noticed noticeably most of those teams that beat the Boston Celtics are the teams that has firepower. So with that said, since I think the Boston Celtics isn't just really bulletproof, especially with Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown having those tendencies with selecting bad shots, it's really questionable how they actually has plays that doesn't really fit well on how I look at them. They're too good. I don't know about Joe Mazzulla. It's just isolation after isolation, wherein there's a lot of good ways to leverage their main players, and resulting to several instances wherein Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum intends to or sorry, it's more of like they are left with bad shots. It's something that the Miami Heat actually prove against the Boston Celtics. Almost 3 or 4 games wherein Jason Tatum had a very bad game. That's because Miami pushed him a situation wherein he needs to decide, and they weren't able to actually step up on that plate. I know it's the past. I know it's totally different, but those are tendencies. It's something that the Dallas Mavericks figure out for against Anthony Edwards, which kind of like favored them as well. So that's one. And then the last point would be Luka Doncic. I'm picking a good team because I think Dallas Mavericks is a good team with the best player over the better team or maybe the best team. So I'm thinking it's going to be close enough to the point that Luka Doncic's ability to score as well as Kyrie Irving it's gonna matter. People are bashing Luka Doncic because of his defense. I would agree to some extent because he doesn't have the ability to actually give you a lot of steals and blocks. But if you watch it closely, he was actually playing the Jaden McDaniels role for the Dallas Mavericks in actually the whole Western Conference playoffs. What I mean is he's playing good basic defense, showing the hands, stretching, sliding the feet, going ahead of time in the position where the offensive player goes. He's filling the holes. Thing is, he doesn't block. Because he's not athletic, but he understands the defense. But as good as he is in comparison to the regular season, Boston is a different team. So he can't just do that, especially in a dispersed offensive set. So it worked against the Minnesota because they pushed Minnesota to strike them where they are strong, wherein they have good rim protection. Now they're going against Boston Celtics, who works from the outside. So I'm expecting a couple of games wherein Boston is just gonna overwhelm the Dallas Mavericks. But there's also a game wherein Luka takes over. But the rest of the game, I was just thinking it could be close. And during those close games, Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, I don't know, I'm just half-hearted to trust them that they can pull it off. I am more confident with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. That's the reason why I'm choosing Dallas in 7.
I love it.
Okay,
I love it. Well, let's wait and see. Cannot wait for game one, and yeah, heaps of water to go under the bridge.
there you go. This was super fun because in comparison to previous finals, it's really hard, right, to actually assess this one. Because especially for Dallas, who out of the blue just punch all of the top 14 from the West in the gut like, hey, we're here. And with the Boston Celtics, they're super good to the point that maybe we're just overcomplicating it. Maybe they're just so good. And, we're thinking too much, and they're gonna, end up barraging a lot of threes and killing the Dallas Mavericks. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. Do we expect more of you, DMAC, until we finish the series?
Yeah, I'm going to ramp up some activities now. I know it's coming to the end of this season, but ramping up activities, already thinking about next season's fantasy basketball as well. So hopefully yourself and your viewers as well is going to get back into fantasy basketball after these playoffs have been run and won.
There you go. Anything you want to plug?
Just keep an eye out. Please follow me on Twitter, NBA Fantasy Bible. It's going to be a massive year going into next season, whichever way that these playoffs go as well. So cannot wait. But yeah, thank you very much, Roy. It's been an absolute pleasure.
There you go. Thank you so much, DMAC. I'm expecting more from you and with Kyle as well for us to really catch up in the upcoming games and doing deep trips as well. And then for me, I'm just gonna quickly show this available in the country. So check out Daily Fantasy. So DMAC, check this one out. I'm gonna send you a link. So it's going to be fun to try a different approach of DFS. So go to playdailyfantasy.com. This is a daily fantasy app. for the ones who have played fantasy basketball, this is going to be easy for you. This specific company actually makes sports matches real and amazing. So for you to get more rubies, because rubies is the one that you need to join contest in the Play Daily Fantasy site, just go ahead and check this icon in this image. It's more of like the ones that I see encircled here. If you click on that, a pop-up window will ask you a promotional code and just put in FBPH. So if you put in FBPH, you get additional 300 rupees for you to actually use in the whole playoff. So go ahead and check this one out, guys. It's going to be fun watching the game while also playing daily fantasy. There you go. Thank you so much, DMAC. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day. Have a very rainy nice day. I think it's also raining in Australia.
It is.
It is.
Thanks, Ray.
Bye, DMAC.
See ya.